If that didn't sum up my feelings on the voice acting, well, I don't know what will. That's what I call my favorite ASMR experience. Black Clover is an interesting one, and I don't mean interesting because the story is interesting. I mean that it's one of the most popular animes this season, but has a very low rating for its class. But before I get all negative, let's talk about the stuff I like. The animation is actually pretty good. I mean, there is a cool scene where everything was like drawn in pencil lines during the fight, and that looked really great. Also, the magical effects are pretty well animated. I actually like the character design for Asta. I mean, it fits his personality. It's really energetic, spunky, and a little bit cute. Just as long as he doesn't open his mouth, because that's when everything just kind of falls apart. So the first episode wasn't that bad. It was pretty okay. And now it was the second episode where I realized that we were in for a treat. A little turd on the shit Sunday, if you will. And that's pacing. Black Clover apparently has enough episodes to last an entire year, and even with 25 episode animes, it kind of gets slow at times too, so that's something to be expected, but not in the first few episodes. You know that phrase, start strong and end strong? Like when you're trying to start off a story, you're supposed to hook the audience in the beginning, and this one unfortunately doesn't do a really good job in grabbing our attention. I know everyone's first complaint other than the voice acting is the lack of originality and how cliche it is, but honestly, I don't really care about that. I've seen other interesting premises that have totally failed, and cliched stories being really enjoyable. It's all about how you deliver it. Episode 2 of Black Clover was where this show lost my interest. So after Asta gets his grimoire and sword, they show about like 15 minutes of backstory and world building. And I use world building loosely because it doesn't even hold a candle to Made in Abyss's world building. So they also show us some backstory for Asta and Yuno, and then they show us their fight with the thief in the alleyway. And finally, when they cut back to the fight right now, I just couldn't care about that fight. You know, the entire time I was just thinking, why? Why did they need to break up the flow of the fight? Fights are supposed to be one of the most memorable parts of a story, you know? That's where all the heightened emotions and, passions are supposed to be clashing. But the problem is when you put this big chunk of thinly disguised exposition, it kills the tension. So I started thinking, how would I break up the scene? Because if it was up to me, I wouldn't just shove everything together into like one chunk. I would actually scatter it throughout the beginning and make it feel more natural. So how about the story of how they came to be, right? The Wizard King fighting the demon guy. Well, I would have stuck it in the third episode. And guess what? They did. Because in the opening scene, they actually showed the Wizard King defeating the demon. And it was actually pretty well animated. It really goes back to the core of writing, and that's show, don't tell. Because they could have cut that out from the second episode, and we would have understood how this world came to be. Asta wanting to marry the nun? I mean, it was kind of funny the first time, but the second, third, 20th time, I'm sorry, that's just not even funny anymore. Now, as for the fight with the thief in the snow and all that would have worked well with the fight that was currently happening. You know, they could do some parallels with back then and now. That would have been acceptable and good flashback, providing context. I also appreciate that Yuno's not just your typical like rival who's just angry. They're still, I guess at the core of it, friends. They still care about each other, but they both have a common goal to become the next Wizard King. And that's what, it's driving friendly competition between the two of them. Episode 3 doesn't really cover any new grounds. They establish again that the priest doubts Asta's abilities. Oh hey, do you know the kids also doubt Asta's abilities? And the Gandalf looking guy as well. Dude, we get it. This episode is mostly just retreading the same stuff, and finally they set off towards the city. I really wanted to like Black Clover. I always go into anime looking for redeeming qualities, but the little enjoyment I had was just clouded by the problems I listed earlier. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate this. I'm just disappointed. This could have been the go-to anime to watch if you want to watch shonen for an entire year. If you like this adaptation so far, I'm not calling you dumb or you got shit taste or something immature like that. They say you shouldn't make fun of mentally challenged people. I'm just kidding, just pointing a leg, guys. So I'm not dropping it yet. You know, I haven't buried it yet. I'm just keeping it at a safe distance where I can monitor it. We're most likely gonna have a tournament/battle arc, so I hope they won't botch that. So, should you watch it? If you want just a shonen anime with enough content to last you a year, try it and see if you can bear the pacing. But for me, I'll watch it if it gets better.